Hello, this is John Hart with Ocean Breeze's Home Inspections. Today I'd like to take a few minutes just to talk to you about mold and the problems it can cause within your home and with your health. Mold is just a simple fungi. There are thousands and thousands of fungi within the earth. However, some of them do turn into mold, and some molds are toxic. And those are the ones that can be dangerous. We're here to look into all of that. Mold inspections versus Lowe's or Home Depot. Why would I want to have a full mold inspection? Well, you can get the do-it-yourself kit from Lowe's or Home Depot. Those are relatively simple. They consist of basically a petri dish with a substance inside that allows the fungi that is collected out of air to possibly grow in. You leave it lay on a table for 1 to 2 hours, you close it up, and then you let it sit in a drawer or a closet somewhere that's dark for 48 hours. And at the end of that time, if something's growing, you know you have something. If nothing's growing, they tell you to put it back in there for another 5 days and check again. Same scenario. If nothing's growing, they tell you to throw it away. And if something's growing, then you know you have something. The difference between that and what we do is a true mold inspection. We would come in, we would first take air samples from outside with a machine that forces the air through the machine at a specific rate and collects samples out of the air on a slide, and it gets sent away to a lab. We also take the same equipment on the same measurements and run a sample inside the house. By doing so, we can tell if there's any elevated substances or something completely different in the home, which would indicate a problem. Now, we would also, from that data, we would know, one, if there's an elevated level, or two, what is it? You know, what samples are being pulled out of the air? Are they normal for the area, or is there something elevated going on in your house? Also, when we are there, if we found heavy moisture areas in many of the common places that homes tend to have problems, we could then use some sophisticated equipment and look inside walls, under cabinets, places where moisture tends to collect, and physically see if we find a substance. If we do, we would then recommend taking a sample of that and sending it off to a lab. If we don't see something, but we possibly have an elevated level, then we would take further air samples of the particular area, again inside a wall, under cabinetry, in the crawl space, in the attic, and send that off. So then we would find exactly what substance is in the house, whether it is just a general fungi growth, if it's a mold that's not a danger, or if it's something very toxic like Stachybostrys, which is commonly known to most people as black mold. That can be very dangerous. These are the kind of things that an individual inspector will do that you cannot get from your kit. Now, one of the common things that we unfortunately come across, scenarios that we keep getting hit with, is a person is purchasing a home or they're selling their home and they have a home inspector come in and do a general home inspection. And they get their report from the inspector, and on it is noted that there may be a fungal problem of some sort. Now, this homeowner or potential homeowner at that point thought they had a qualified individual and they're a little upset that they now have to find someone else because this home inspector cannot tell them what the substance is and if they got a problem. We get that quite often, and then we will end up having to go in after that person and run all these tests. Now, no concerns. We can handle all of that. If we were hired to do the home inspection in the first place, we would stop midway once we found something and contact whether that is the homeowner themselves or a person looking to buy, whoever the client happens to be, and say, we have this situation and we possibly could have found a problem. What we recommend doing is taking samples and sending them off. That's an additional service, but we would be able to do that at the time, and it would save you a lot of money from hiring a second contractor, since we are already there and we have the equipment with us. People ask how is it that mold can be a problem in my home or in this home that we're looking at and it looks perfect? Well, if it's a home that has been prepped and ready to sell, one of the first things most real estate agents tell current owners is to freshen it up. New paint, new carpet, those kinds of things. Unfortunately, in doing that, that hides things. Yes, it makes the house look pretty and smells good again, but if there were previous roof leaks, if there were previous plumbing leaks, if there was flooding in the house, any of those types of things are now covered up. And just because they're covered up doesn't mean they've been cleaned up. The remediation companies actually have to scrub the air and remove most drywall, wood, carpets if there's a severe mold infestation. They can't just scrub that clean. Mold spores actually embed themselves in the walls, in the floor, in the materials. Remember, mold and fungi actually break things down in this earth and decompose it. So they are beginning to do that, and they are in that wall substance. So you cannot just simply scrub it clean. It's much more complicated than that. So again, people ask, how can it be in my house? Well, if there's a house that is in a low-lying area, so you get flooding under the house quite often, and your house has a crawl space, that water moisture can be wicked up into the walls, into the floorboards, into the joists. If you had a roof leak in the past, even if, and it doesn't have to be current, it can be in the past, even if the roof was repaired, there could be issues in the attic or in the walls below. Newer homes have lots of insulation, and that is great for heating costs, not good for ventilation. So if moisture gets into a place that it does not belong, it unfortunately does not get a chance to dry out, and mold can, in the right climate, or in the wrong climate, however you want to look at it. Here in the South, it's 98% humidity today alone. Anything over 70% is ideal for mold growth. Things as simple as your sprinkler system outside. It should not be spraying against the side of your house. If it is, it can get up in behind the siding and create a problem from the outside in. Damp crawl spaces, again. Bathrooms that get really steamed up and the vent isn't working properly. Same goes with kitchens. If someone in the house does a lot of cooking and there's a lot of steam, if it's not being properly vented out, that can find its way into areas that you wouldn't even imagine that shouldn't be getting to. And things as simple as a clothes dryer exhausting into into a wall because or an attic because the vent tube has either gotten smashed or disconnected, and it's not venting outside like it's supposed to be. That's a lot of humid air going someplace where it's not supposed to. If we are hired, we will indeed come in, further investigate. We'll listen to what the client has to say about the home, what their concerns are. We'll look for take air samples inside and outside. We'll look for moisture using equipment in the walls and the ceilings and the floors, behind refrigerators, you name it. We're going to look places that you hadn't thought of. We'll also be taking and looking to see if any elevated conditions exist. We might recommend additional air or surface samples and to confirm a problem and what it happens to be. When we're finished, the lab results come back within 48 hours to 7 days, depending on the type of samples we took, and we'll be able to give you definitive answers on whether you have a mold problem, and if so, if it's something that can be simply cleaned up with water and bleach, if it's on surfaces that can be hard surfaces that can be cleaned, or if it's something that you need a remediation company to come in and take care of. Because again, even though mold is difficult to clean, if it's on the right surfaces, it can be done by the homeowner and doesn't require very expensive remediation. On the other hand, sometimes it does. And lastly, we want to talk about some of the health effects. Those that are most at risk: the elderly, folks that have inflammation or allergies or infections, anyone who has lung or breathing respiratory problems already. They are easily susceptible to mold spore problems. Children are also, their immune system isn't built up like an adult. Anyone who has nasal or sinus congestion that is not a normal problem for them, this could be a symptom. Respiratory problems such as wheezing, difficulty breathing or shortness of breath, eye irritation, really burning eyes, a dry hacking cough, nose and throat irritations, and skin rashes that are unexplainable. All these things can be symptoms of mold exposure. You can have 6 people living in the home and 5 of them are fine. It's very similar to hay fever. Not everyone has an allergic reaction to it, but those that do, it can be bad. So that one person, if they're having something that is unusual or unexplainable, and you've had a leaky roof or a flood recently that maybe you thought everything was dried out, there could be problems somewhere, and it is highly suggested that you have a professional come in and take a look and do samples. One thing that is undeniable is that the cost of an inspection versus the cost of your health or the damage that can be done to a home with things not being taken care of, there's absolutely no comparison. It is so much cheaper just to have the house investigated and inspected properly. I hope this short video has helped anyone with a lot of questions about mold. And we don't like to scare people, but we do need to make sure that you realize that it can be serious and it can be dangerous. So let a professional come in and take a look. That's all for today. We welcome any comments or questions you have. Look forward to the next video. Thank you.